What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 21 of
21.
Shut up of the College Loop Podcast. I am joined today by Harrison Tarr, as always, and Daniel Locke. We are back at it, and just getting started with the preview going on. Auburn takes on Texas A&M, I believe, today.
This is the
out.
Tuesday show. I believe is the game Tuesday or Wednesday? I haven't even looked
The game
yet.
is Tuesday.
Okay. It's tomorrow. So thank you, Daniel. I'm glad that I just learned this on live air. Is it 7 o'clock Eastern tip? 6 o'clock Central?
6 Central.
Yes. Awesome.
But yeah, the Tigers in a must-win game after they are now unranked after 32 consecutive weeks of being ranked. And I mean, when you say must-win, every game's a must-win, but this one is a capital M-U-S-T must-win for the Tigers because there is a worst-case scenario. We've talked about it. Jacob Goins had the balls to say it. If Auburn doesn't start finding games to win, Auburn could find themselves out of the tournament.
You're absolutely right, Dylan. And I think that I've actually had some time to sleep on it and think on it. And when when Goins said on the show, that Auburn there's a way that Auburn doesn't make the tournament. I think I sounded like I was overreacting. I'd like to clarify myself here. I'm glad someone was willing to step up as a guest on the show. That can say it, so that way they can deal with that in their own mentions and not in ours. But I think Jacob brings up a really good point, man. There's room for concern, and this I feel like it's going to be a tale of two teams going down the stretch, and that's kind of what we've seen to this point. And I'm not even talking about the two teams being Kentucky and Alabama or Kentucky and Tennessee or whatever combination you want to look at. I'm talking about Auburn and bad Auburn. I mean, this team can be one of two molds, and there's a lot of different avenues to go about this. And we've already seen Auburn lose to Texas A&M at home at Neville Arena. They had that long home win streak snapped at the hands of Buzz yet again. And this is Buzz is, I think we should start calling him the Buzz Saw. Because all he does is just chop straight through Bruce Pearl's teams. I kind of like that little analogy. It's no Will Cruz's street sweeper, but I think that I think there's some validity in it.
Sorry.
No, go right ahead, Dan.
One win over Williams.
One win?
One.
Yeah, it's one of those coaches. And I think A&M, that was a great hire for them a few years back. And that's going to be a continual build of that program. Unfortunately for Auburn, they've got to go on the road in College Station and play in a hostile environment and succeed. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor here. It's disappointing for Auburn fans, obviously, that Auburn's ranked streak is out of the picture now. So what? So be it. Being ranked in college basketball really is not the end of the world. It matters more when you're in the upper echelon for seeding, and it's kind of a more clear picture of where you're going to be. But honestly, the net and KenPom will matter so much more than the AP. And I'm not demeaning what Bruce Pearl and them did with their streak of ranked on the AP poll. That's a big deal. But we'll start with you, Daniel, if that's okay. Going down this stretch, and let's address a little bit. Let's talk the hard questions, guys. Auburn is objectively on kind of thin ice, right? In terms of, I don't know how much they're really in jeopardy of not making the tournament unless they lose out. I think I see a 4-4 floor. That's rhymed a lot, but I think the floor is 4-4. But Daniel, what does Auburn need to do to escape being like a low level seed, like a 10 seed, 11 seed?
Right. So first of all, hello everyone. Good whatever time of day you're listening to the podcast on. It's good to be back. I've had to miss the last 2 episodes, unfortunately. Last Wednesday I had to record my professional wrestling podcast over on Weagle. If you feel so inclined, you should definitely check that out. And then on Saturday I was actually in Knoxville. Originally I was gonna record. I was gonna hop on in my roommate Ethan's car. By the way, Ethan says hello. I forgot to say that before we started.
Hello to Mr. Miller, friend of the program.
But then I just was in no mood and probably would have said some things that would have not flown. So I just decided to take the rest of my vacation day. But good to be back. But now to answer Tar's question, it was seeding, right?
It was going down the stretch. How does Auburn skate on this thin ice and stay keep their head afloat and avoid being an 11 seed? I mean, that can be detrimental.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, in my intro I forgot. Okay. So win tomorrow, lose to Bama.
Okay.
Beat Vanderbilt. No reason to lose that. I know it's a road game in the SEC, but come on now. Beat Tennessee at home.
Sure.
Oh goodness, bear with me.
I think you have to win Kentucky at Rupp.
To not be an 11, probably.
And Missouri.
Missouri. There's another tournament team.
Yeah. I think you said 4-4. Yeah, I think if Auburn can go like 5-3, I think they'll be okay.
They're in good shape at 5-3. I think they're in decent shape. I think you could still be a 10 seed. I think you could be as high as a 9, just depending on if you get help elsewhere, because everyone's beating up on everyone around the country. I mean, we watched Gonzaga and St. Mary in one of the games of the year this past weekend, and they're beating up on each other. Those are 2 tournament teams.
I feel like the ceiling, unless just something crazy happens, is about 7th seed.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Barring a sweep of Alabama, and barring you win out.
I think you have to win out and do really well in the SEC tournament to be definitely a top 5, probably anything a 6 or better, I would imagine.
I would agree with you, Daniel. And Dylan, I'd like to get your thoughts on kind of, I'm going to pose the same question to you here. Going down the stretch, what's the outlook got to be for both Bruce Pearl and company and Auburn fans? Let's look at this from a realistic standpoint, right? And take a look and say you should always cheer for your team and you should always want your team to win. But here's what you need to set your expectation of. This is what my minimal bar is, and this is anything less than this is acceptable.
I mean, looking down these last 8 games, I mean, the only game I can look at and be like, yeah, Auburn's winning that one is Ole Miss. That's about as far as the easy games go. Just because Vanderbilt's going to be such a tough game on the road. I mean, Vanderbilt's not a bad team. But you look at like Missouri's like 3rd on that list of easiest teams that we have left, and their tournament team. Right. A&M, another team right above Missouri, and then you have two more Bama at Kentucky and Tennessee. And I look down the stretch, and I'm like, if Auburn can't figure out how to fix this offense, I mean, 12 seed or lower, I feel like, just because Tennessee was unacceptable. Yes, the fouls should have been called, shouldn't have been called, whatever. The game should never be decided by the refs. And you've got to shoot the ball better than
that. Dylan, you got to shoot the ball better than that.
Yeah, the game should never be decided by the refs. You should never score 43 points in a game ever, unless that's in the first half. If you're ending in the first half and it was 46-43, you're in good shape. But you finish the game with 43 points.
You sound just like the Tennessee fan that was sitting in front of me on Saturday.
Oh, I don't think that's a compliment.
Yeah, that's not a compliment at all. I'll mute you. I have the power to mute you in this Zoom call game.
I would mute myself.
Don't compare me to the Tennessee fans.
Don't act like them.
I'm kidding. Am I wrong, Daniel? Do you want to only score 43 points in a game? It's like if
the other team scores 42, sure.
No, no, Daniel, you're absolutely right. Winning is the ultimate trump card, right? The ultimate that does ultimately just win, baby. Dickie B, right?
Get it, Trump, big orange. That's funny.
Yeah, there you go. Ha ha, boom, boom. Anyways, just win, baby, right? And I get that mentality, but in the SEC, you cannot score 43 points and expect to win a basketball game. You can't. And on Tennessee's end of the ball, you can't score 46 points and expect to win a basketball game. You got lucky. There was a lid on the rim. I mean, and I could go down the whole list of the officiating was horrific. Yes, it was bad. I think it was bad both ways. We could go down the list of Auburn shot the ball like crap. Tennessee shot the ball like crap. The rims on both ends at the charity stripe looked like they were about the size of a freaking egg. I mean, it's unreal. How both teams should be pissed off about that one. I mean, the only good thing for Tennessee is that they won. So I'm building off of you. I'm defending both of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I mean, looking down the stretch, I mean, you can't score 43 points against Texas A&M and expect to win that game. You can't score 43 points against any of these teams and expect to win the game.
You can't score less than 65 for a single game for the rest of the year and expect to win.
Oh yeah. And I mean, if something's not fixed quick, because we expected the Georgia game to be a building block. The big Georgia winning by 21, correct? Yeah, 21 points.
And it feels like that momentum's gone.
The momentum has dwindled away. It is now nothing but ash. It has been shot down like a duck because the Tennessee game was horrendous to watch. And yeah, you mentioned it. Tennessee, yeah, they won. So it's good for them. They can look behind it. But now that's all Auburn has right now to look at. Is we looked like crap against Tennessee, and we have that was just the beginning of an absolute gauntlet that's ahead of Auburn. 2 more times against Bama, at Kentucky, 1 more time against Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and A&M. Not even to count Ole Miss because they're irrelevant to this conversation. I'm talking about all the good teams left on the schedule. You
Agreed.
cannot play like you did against Tennessee ever again.
Let me throw this out there. Let me throw this out there right now. You only scored 43 against Ole Miss. You probably lose that game too. It does not matter. You should not win a game in the SEC. You shouldn't win a game in college basketball. Score 43. It is flat out unacceptable. It's inexcusable and it's pathetic. I mean, and I already know that that's going to be a quote on our grid, guys. I can see that now. But I think I'm right.
There are high school areas where you probably couldn't get by with 43.
Bingo. You're absolutely correct, Daniel. And I want to kind of reel it back in for a second here. I just hit my mic. Whoops. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Anyways, I want to reel it back in for a second here and talk about last time A&M and Auburn matched up, and that win streak was snapped at Neville Arena. And you look at the trend, and we say this every freaking episode. Dylan, what am I about to say? Two words. Starts with T. The first two letters of each word. TG. Go guess.
TG.
Tom Green of AL.com.
Correct. How about tall guards?
Tall guard.
Yep. We talk about that's the buzzword, right? That's a buzzword in 2022 to 2023. You've got Tyrese Radford and Wade Taylor IV. Tyrese Radford made Auburn look like they had never played basketball in their life, not on the defensive end of the floor. Wade Taylor, we know he's capable. And this is a game where if Auburn's guards don't step up, Auburn's gonna be in some deep crap. And that scene from Moneyball, it's like there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. You know what I mean? When Brad Pitt says that to Jonah Hill. Or I guess not Jonah Hill, the rest of the organization. It's not important. But I guess what I'm going to pose to you here is, and this transitions nicely into our mailbag question. Dylan, I know you're looking at that, and you like my little tie there, my little segue, make it nice and smooth. We had a really good mailbag question that was asked of us unintentionally, and then I think that he was like, "Oh, bet I'll listen to this on the podcast." So Kyle Loomis, if you're listening right now, appreciate the mailbag question, guys. Katie Johnson has been, dare I say, a bright spot over the past 2.5, 5 combined halves, somewhere in there, 4.5 combined halves. We're getting into a lot of math here that I'm not very good at, so I got a degree in journalism. As of late, Katie Johnson has been there. He's not knocking down the shots that good Katie Johnson can knock down. But what if Katie Johnson develops some consistency, whether that be stepping up and shooting 20% from deep, or not turning the ball over, or staying out of foul trouble and getting to the rim and scoring, averaging, let's say, if Katie can average 10 a game. What does that mean for this guard group specifically? And Dylan, I'll open it up to you first, since I let Daniel field the last one first. What does this mean for Auburn down the stretch? Well, how much higher is the ceiling?
The ceiling skyrockets, I think, if you have a tertiary guard outside of Wendell Green, and I'm going to count him Flanagan as your scoring threats. Just because Katie Johnson's ability to drive in when he's able to make the shots, it rivals Wendell Green's ability to drive in and get those circus layups, however what. But the thing about Katie Johnson is he's able to draw fouls when he's able to get those shots, and he's always the and one kind of guard. Right. And watching him last game, I mean, it does get a little infuriating when you see him behind the 3-point line, and you're like,
or he's going to shoot.
Yeah, you're like, please, just for once in your life, please don't shoot the ball. And then against Tennessee, you saw sometimes he wouldn't. He would drive in and do it. He made his bread and butter last season was he'd get the ball, put it on the court, and drive in, draw a foul, and more often than not, he gets that third point. I mean, that's the kind of 3-pointers that you want Katie Johnson getting, is a layup, then the foul.
Sure. And Daniel, kind of building off of that, if Katie Johnson surfaces and averages, let's say something, even 8 a game, even 8 and 8.5 or whatever, between 8 and 10, somewhere in that ballpark, going down the stretch, how much stress does that take off of the rest of this guard group that, I mean, outside of Wendell Green Jr. really can't score? I mean, I guess Alan Flanagan, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, 8 a game definitely takes some off. I feel like if you can get that to 10 or 11 or maybe even 12, that really takes a lot of pressure off. But if he can just consistently put the ball in put the ball in the hoop, that can be a few points that Wendell and Zepp, and I know you said guards, but like Jalen, like that's a couple points a game less that they have to worry about. so you can focus on other things, and just kind of spread it around a little more. So it definitely wouldn't hurt at all.
I couldn't agree more. And if you look going ahead to the A&M game on Tuesday, or I guess tonight as this episode comes out, Auburn should be back at full strength, assuming that there were no long-lasting injuries that we know about. We know Dylan Cardwell was out on Saturday due to illness. And I'm gonna be honest, not one part of me ever was like, oh, I wonder if Dylan Cardwell was on the floor. And that's no shade. I just don't think it changes the outcome of the game. You know what I mean? And that being said, let's pivot from a team that's been healthy, Daniel, to a team that is quite possibly just not. It might not be legal for Auburn women's basketball to stay healthy. So, Daniel, walk us through real quick. And I wasn't able to watch on Sunday, Auburn versus Arkansas. It's the first women's game I've missed in a while, or at least not watched the recap on. So walk us through it, and I've got the box in front of me. It's all yours.
All right, I'm pulling up the box right now. Just give me 1 second. I unfortunately didn't get to watch much of it either. I kind of tuned in and tuned out for a little bit, but I was enjoying some family time. Auburn did their typical thing where they got down pretty big, but came back as they were down 16-5 at the end of the first quarter. And then at halftime, the score was 32-19. Auburn won both the third and fourth quarters. Anyway, kind of skipping to the end, Auburn lost on a controversial call to lose the game 54-51. I'm not going to really spend a ton of time on that, but Auburn just didn't get the scoring that they normally do, particularly from Aisha Coulibaly, who you can normally count on from anywhere from 20 to 30 a game. She got you 1. Honesty Scott Grayson, who I'm still not sure is 100%, got you 11. Jacayla Johnson got you 9. Chris Richardson got you 9. Romy Levy came for 9. Caitlin Duhan and Marshawn Bostic both got 6. And then Sydney Shaw got 4. So that's just not really going to get the job done. And if you look at Arkansas, they didn't really have anyone who went off either. Aaron Barnum led the scoring for the Razorbacks with 14, closely followed by Michaela Daniels with 11, and then Sailor Poffenbarger with 10. Then you have 7 from Sharma Spencer, 7 from Chrissy Carr, 4 from Jersey Wolfenbarger. That's a cool name. And then 1 from Riley Langerman. Man, I love these Arkansas names. That's sick. But yeah, so just a very winnable game that just kind of got away there at the end. One you hate to see. It would have been really cool to go 4 in a row. It wouldn't have. It would have, been a bright spot on a weekend that Auburn lost in gymnastics Friday, men's basketball Saturday. So would have been able to end the weekend on a win. But you just gotta look on to the next one.
You're right. At some point you just have to look forward, and I mean. Let's be honest here for a second, guys. If Auburn wins this game, great, 4 in a row. The streak's over on Thursday, regardless. When South Carolina comes to town, and that's no discredit to Auburn. I thought that Auburn fought back well. And from what I've read, what I've interpreted from the box score, what I've interpreted from talking to friends of the program, people within the program. Coach Jay pointed it out, man. There's a lot of points you just left hanging there. Auburn went 14-27 from the stripe. That's the difference in the game. And even if you just make 4 of those, it's unreal. And this is usually a pretty strong free throw shooting team. I mean, you shoot 32% from the field, and you against a team that shoots 26.9% of the field, and you lose that game. Listen, sometimes it happens. That's just one of those. You just can't reason with it, right? I mean, there's some just things that are just not logical. in college basketball, specifically in the women's game. And this is when you just kind of got to take on the chin, you know what I mean? And just kind of bounce back, pop back up, and get ready for the next rep. And you mentioned it, Daniel. Women's basketball rounded out the weekend 0 for 3 for Auburn across the 3 competitions they had. But there were some bright spots in Friday Night Heights.
There were. I was there. I covered this one for Weagle in Tuscaloosa. Worst credential I've ever had, but that's a story for another time. A very, very electric meet. Very glad I got to be there for it. Just what an atmosphere. And getting into the actual meet itself, very close. I honestly think those are 2 of the best gymnastics teams in the SEC,
sure.
Which no one in the SEC is bad at all.
Right.
Everyone in the SEC is very, very good. But in 5 seconds, I'll have it pulled up.
I think that I'm going to expand on this while you pull that up real quick.
Sure.
this meet is so indicative. Actually, I think it's more of a credit to Alabama than it is a discredit to Auburn. First off, we know how gymnastics works. Until you're in national regionals and nationals, it doesn't matter about ranking, about win-loss rather. It matters about where you're ranked, what your score projections are, where you stand. And it took Alabama 5 career highs, Daniel, to beat Auburn in an arena and the airplane hangar that Auburn's never won at in gymnastics. And I think it's more of a credit. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think that's just a testament that Alabama is maybe better than people thought they were, and people thought they were good already. So I don't think this is discredit Auburn at all.
A lot of people on Auburn Twitter were complaining about the officiating, or excuse me, the judging. But I mean, and mainly because Alabama got exactly what they needed on the floor. But those were some darn good Florida teams. Like, they just did good. It's not like other sports. Suni Lee can't go up on the beam and truck Luisa Blanco off of it. Like, you cannot
she
play.
Could. She could do that.
She could, in theory. Would it end her career? Absolutely. But you can't play defense. So what the other team does, like, that's just it.
It's out of your control.
So, right. And a lot of people, I'm really glad the Auburn family is starting to get into gymnastics. I really am. But this is different from any other sport. Wins and losses are not the end-all be-all. It is near impossible to win on the road because, in football, 100 yards is 100 yards. In baseball, the bases are 90 feet apart. And this other team gets to practice on this equipment every day. You get 4 minutes before that meet starts to get a feel for that equipment, the way the floor bounces. There's no need to hit the panic button at all.
I think it's just crediting how big of a rivalry it is between our two schools. That's why the Iron Bowl is one of the greatest rivalries in the history of sports, because it goes way deeper than just football. A loss in gymnastics does not matter that much, but it's the fact that we lost to Alabama that just boils everyone down to their core. Just seeing any graphic where it's Alabama on top of Auburn in any way, shape, or form makes me want to start typing at some people, just because it makes your blood boil. It just does. Like, I'm getting tense up just thinking about it, just because that's why that just credits the Iron Bowl that much.
Oh, I think you're right. I don't think that you've overspoke at all, Dylan. And it also it credits the high level of talent, not just within the state of Alabama in terms of gymnastics, but that is being pulled into the state of Alabama. And I'm not one to say for you Barners out there, a Bammer victory is not a Barner victory. That's not what I'm saying. But these are two very, I know you don't like this term, complementary programs on the other side of the state of each other, because we know Alabama's a football state. Now Alabama's a basketball state. Alabama's a gymnastics state now. I mean, this is it's good for the future generations of gymnasts, Dylan. That's what I'm getting at.
We're an everything state, but I'd like us to be better at everything than Alabama.
Sure.
And just one thing I'd kind of like to say: every Auburn athlete has made their mark on the rivalry. Bow over the top. Go crazy Cadillac. I'm sure Charles Barkley did something pretty cool.
Even Bo Nix, 2019 Iron Bowl.
Right.
Like, even guys that don't spend their entire career there.
Can you guys tell me how many Auburn gymnasts have gotten a 10 in Coleman Coliseum before Friday night?
I'm going to guess 0.
I'm going to say 0.
0. Suni Lee got 2 of them. She made her mark on the rivalry.
You're right. I that was just mic drop moment. That's all.
Build the statue.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And we're going to have that conversation at the end of her sophomore year, at the end of her season, on the loop right here. And we've talked about this before. We're going to have a discussion about where she fits in in the scream of greatest Auburn athletes of all time. And I think that we hinted at it on the Twitter today. We got some good interactions. If you're watching and you want to comment on YouTube, you want to hit us on Twitter, or you comment on us on Facebook, DM us, whatever, and tell us your thoughts. We'd love to read through them and talk to each point, because this is a conversation that's here. And the fact that we're living through the opportunity to talk about one of the greatest athletes to come through Auburn is so cool.
This is just something that I want to say. This is me talking directly to all of our listeners. Please, please, please don't miss this opportunity. Please come watch this team compete. You will not regret it whatsoever.
And if you have to spend a couple of bucks to do it, if you can scrape it together, I get it. I know it's expensive at Auburn Arena, but if you can scrape a couple bucks together and try to go see him before SUNY's gone, and even afterwards, it's going to be special afterwards. But
Yeah.
this is SUNY Shalee is one of the most special and gifted athletes that has ever come through Auburn University. And if you miss your opportunity now, I'm sorry. If you can't make it physically, I get it. If you can't make it work, I get it. But at least tune in on Friday Night Heights, because, man, is she special. This team is special. It goes deeper than her. I mean, you look at Darion Goborn bringing down the house, walking out to God Save the Queen in her floor routine. You look at Cassie Stevens lighting it up just across, beating SUNY Shalee in the all-around a couple meets ago. I mean, and then Sophia Groth, she has the potential, and she is spectacular, but she can have very special nights. This team is so good. It's so deep, and the tradition and culture that is being established now is unprecedented at Auburn. And it's a special, and the fact we've sat here and we've talked for over 5 minutes about gymnastics on an Auburn podcast. If we were talking on Auburn Gymnastics on the radio 5 years ago, this would be unheard of, unprecedented. And now what we're doing is commonplace, because it's just such a special feat. So Daniel, I'm glad you brought that up. I really am. And it is worth noting that SUNY Lee has now surpassed Florida's Trinity Thomas as the number one in all around rankings in the NCAA. And Auburn jumped up one spot after losing to Bama, losing in air quotes, right? This past week. So Auburn back up in the top 5. What a weekend for Auburn Gymnastics, and what a year. I got my SEC championship tickets already, Daniel. So it's in
I'll be there.
Will you? I graduated from high school in that arena. Fun fact.
Oh, really?
I did. So yeah, I'm out. I'm taking my mom has never seen SUNY, and she wants to see her before she leaves. So I got mom tickets to go see SUNY.
I get to meet Mrs. Tall. That's
right. You get to meet both the parents. Mom and dad will both be there. And the whole family, as we say, Dylan, bringing them all with me. Let's pivot real quick before we get into some Diamond Sports, Dylan, and let's talk Auburn Twitter moment of the week. What do you say, guys?
I am down.
Let's do it. All right, I'm going to lead in with my Auburn Twitter moment of the week. Dylan's got one. Daniel, if you've got an honorable mention, or if you want to piggyback off of one of us, go right ahead. Mine is, I know we're a little delayed here. I get it. I know Walker White committed on Friday, and I know this was this past weekend. We should have done this on the Sunday show. Come at me. Fine. Who cares? I'm going with the Bruce Hugh Brotherhood. The simplicities of them, boom, saying boom, like Bruce, Hugh, and hyping each other up on Twitter is the perfect embodiment of a little bit of what a meme this duo is. The great coaching, right? We think that we know Bruce is great. We think that Hugh can be very, very good at Auburn. It's funny, guys, and the deep fried memes that have come out of this, and especially since it was already a little bit brother Hugh, has been nothing short of incredible. So that's my Auburn Twitter moment of the past week. Dylan,
mine's got to go to Sammy Coates and his infatuation with wine. Just because he asked all of his followers who wants to join him for a wine night. If you go through his entire Twitter, you get more wine than anything else on his page. Like we went through it earlier. It was like sunset, wine. He's exercising, wine all the way down. Like the man loves his wine. So that's my pick for my Twitter moment of the week, just because it's wild how much that man loves wine.
Daniel, any honorable mentions?
Sure. I'm going to go with 2024 quarterback commit Walker White recruiting
this one's
guys to come with him to play at Auburn.
Dude, did the quote tweet from we'll talk about the decommit from Alabama later here in a minute. But the quote tweet that says, "I love to see this," and tagged Hugh Freeze, and it was the funniest thing I've seen all day. I was like, oh, Walker was not kidding when he said he's going to start recruiting people to the Plains.
Said someone, bring me by commits.
That's right. And speaking of accolades on the Plains and highly anticipated athletes come this year, let's talk a little bit of Diamond Sports, guys, before we hop into the monstrosity that is football always is. Let's talk a little softball right now. Dylan, I'll let you break this news. I know you're very excited for these accolades.
Yeah, so Bri Ellis was ranked the fifth. I don't even know how to read this. It was kind of put weirdly on the graphic. Just ranked the number 5 D1 softball first baseman in the country. And there's a lot of teams in the country. And out of all of them, she's the 5th best.
If you don't mind, I'm going to read off her freshman stat line real quick, just so people can see why she's on this list. And in case you don't know who Bri Bombs is, first off, get out to Jane D. Moore, because I have been there on a number of occasions, and this is no exaggeration. Dylan's been there with me. He can have my back here. I've been there on a number of occasions where she's put him off the top of the scoreboard. And she is just ridiculously good. She hit for 302 as a freshman, true freshman, played in 56 games, started 55 of them, so played every game last year, scored 32 runs, 45 hits, 8 doubles, one triple, and 20 homers.
My favorite was when she almost took the eagle off the top of the scoreboard.
Dude, that's one of the games I was talking about. Dylan and I were like, oh my God, that ball was hit a mile.
Why did I sit by y'all at
that? Did you not work it?
No, I was just there alone.
Big weird. I have no idea. You should have found us. Anyways.
One of my favorite memories of the softball last season was whenever Bri Ellis hit my mind is blanking, a grand slam. And I look over to Mr. Harrison Tarr over there and I go, how do you even follow up a grand slam?
Then Michaela Packer shows you how to
Denver Bryant. It was Denver Bryant.
It was Denver Bryant, sorry.
Denver Bryant walked up and on the first pitch just sent it over the fence. So I watched a grand slam and a home run in a matter of minutes.
So, and then of course, Daniel, as soon as Denver Bryant made contact with the ball, you knew it was out. So, and Dylan had just asked me, well, how do you follow up a grand slam? And as soon as you heard the crack of the bat, I said, like that. But Bri Ellis is her just gonna round this out real quick. Drew 13 walks and was good for 49 ribbies last year. She's going to be all SEC as long as she's in Auburn. I'll go ahead and say that now. It's barring, knock on wood, she stays healthy, special talent, and someone that Mickey Dean and company should be very excited about going forward. Another team on the Plains, another Diamond team. Let's talk a little bit of Auburn baseball, guys, here for just a couple minutes because I don't want to ramble too long. Don't want the show to run too long.
I just want the record to say I'm here instead of at BP with BT.
Oh, was tonight BP with BT?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you totally could have gone and we would have completely understood.
I have 2 unexcused absences. I'm just kidding.
It's good thing I'm not one of those professors that takes points off. It's all good. But let's talk a little Auburn baseball for a second here. Auburn was picked to finish last in the SEC West, which is just really something. If you guys don't mind, I'll read out the order. Number 1, LSU, 2, Ole Miss, 3, Texas A&M, 4, Arkansas, 5, Alabama, 6, Mississippi State. In my opinion, there are 2 to 3 teams that are clearly should be below Auburn in the preseason rankings. But Auburn lost a lot of talent. I mean, if you look at all the arms that they lost, I guess I kind of get it. I certainly think Auburn's better than Alabama. I think Mississippi State's kind of in the trenches right now. They kind of hit their precipice, right, or their pinnacle, and then they've kind of been on this exponential downhill. A&M, I think, is going to be very, very good. But we know about Ole Miss, we know about LSU. Arkansas, jury's out, right? Jury's still out on that one. I think this is criminal, guys, and it's one of those things that, I mean, Auburn's used to this, right? Like Auburn baseball, Butch Thompson and the boys, like whatever.
I mean, Auburn's always the underdog, and no matter what sport, it doesn't really matter. They're gonna doubt us, but I mean, when was the last time Auburn was projected to finish 7th? And where did we go? Omaha, was that right?
There's your fun trivia question, kids.
When was the last time the team predicted to finish last in the SEC West went to Omaha? Oh, it was last year with the Auburn Tigers.
A lot of people are looking at this and from a rotational standpoint, Dylan, where they're like, well, you lose Hayden Mullins, you lose Mason Barnett, and you lose Trace Bright, which, I mean, is no offense to Trace, but like he's not been that good the past couple of years. If you look at this rotation, okay, we know about Joseph Gonzalez. I said Jose Gonzalez. It's one of my bosses. How about Joseph Gonzalez? Hello. We know about Joseph Gonzalez. We know about what he can do. We know about that he's going to go early in the MLB draft. Tommy Sheehan's back. Tommy Sheehan is going to be a first full year of full usage after that Tommy John surgery at Notre Dame. And you keep rolling through this team. There's a ton of young options. Carson Swelling Jr. is going to be back. Jordan Armstrong. A lot of people thought that he really should be bidding for a spot in this rotation. And then you've got freshmen, Hayden Murphy, Drew Nelson, Zach Crotchville. These guys could really make an impact. And they're guys that Butch had to fight to make sure they didn't go to the league out of high school. So I guess my message here, and Dylan, I'll let you expand. I'm done blabbing. I'm sorry. I just had to I had my Lindsey Crosby rant. I'm sorry. There's a lot of reason to be optimistic and kind of just turn a blind eye. Thoughts?
I mean, yeah. I mean, because if you look at Auburn did lose Sonny DeShera, who was a huge bright spot, and his Italian ways, hitting balls 100 million feet off the out of the field. But I mean, you got to look at Auburn, and you're seeing the transfers they brought in, how they touted the transfer guys, and you're like, are you sure that Auburn should be finishing 7th? All of you experts on this, I don't really get it.
Well, if you look at this, the guys that Auburn's bringing back in the infield alone: Cole Foster, Brody Moore, Nate LaRue, 3 guys that were really big deals, whether that be offensively or defensively. We know the Nate LaRue syndrome, we get that, but huge deals. But hey, the guy may struggle with the plate. He calls a great game behind the dish.
Oh, he's a great catcher,
and he's got a rocket arm. You've got guys, and then the outfield. Kason Howell's coming back. Bobby Pierce, Mike Bello. You've got your team is back. Like, what is this all about? So that's my point. And Dylan, without further ado, I know you're chomping at it. Or Daniel, did you want to expand? I apologize.
On us being severely underrated?
Sure.
Just watch.
There you go. Simple message. Dylan, the floor is yours for football.
All right. But before we get to football, this is added in a new rule that the SEC is now implementing. The fact that the SEC and conference games will have a 10-run mercy rule, as in after 7 innings, if a team is up by 10, the game will be called, and not the loser, but the winner will be crowned for demolishing the other team.
Hey, that's just so good for these young arms, man. That's so good for these young guys.
Nothing's worse than being in the 8th inning and you're up by 14. And yeah, it feels great to be winning, but you're like, oh my God, can we just strike out? Like,
yeah, your favorite team's secondary, like first reliever still in the game, and he's throwing like 60 pitches, and you're like, oh my God, get him out.
I need him for when Auburn goes back to Omaha this year.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's just a big news tidbit that happened, I believe today. I think today, either that or yesterday, where it happened. But I mean, I think
it got passed this morning.
Yeah, big enough to where it really helps the arm health of these pitchers. And I mean, someone on this podcast knows what it's like to have a torn rotator cuff. So I'll let y'all guess.
Daniel, do you have a torn rotator cuff?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
All right, I guess that only leaves it down to one option.
Say I play football and soccer, so my shoulders are.
You don't like my little?
Okay. Yeah, Tarr's arm pops when he moves in a weird way, like it's
or in a normal way.
I've heard it pop after he like picked up his drink at like Taco Bell or something. He just goes, like, oh, is that you?
Hey, that's what years and years of catching and then throwing bullpen sidearm will do for you, bud.
But again, the football, 2024 4-star tight end Martavious Collins, the Bama commit, who we talked about him a little bit because he was part of former Bama commit because he's now decommitted from Alabama. Tarr hit the camera off with a mute to cough. But yeah, he is decommitted from Alabama. He has just been on 2 visits to Auburn prior to this. And a certain quarterback who you may have not heard of, Walker White, has him listed as one of his most wanted. And it's looking pretty good. This dude is 6'3", 240 pounds, tight end, and he would join a room that's tight end. I love the tight end room so much. Very underrated position. Does not get utilized nearly enough. Love the tight ends, but Luke Deal and Brandon Frazier, Tyler Fromm, and of course, Valdo. We'll never forget Valdo Fairweather.
Right.
And as someone who's been forgotten a lot is Michael Riley Ducker. I think he deserves a lot more credit for his talent level, but we just haven't seen him enough. But he joins that kind of tight end room, and it looks so good.
Let me throw you around a little just frame comparison, Dylan. And we're talking tight ends and we're talking Hugh Freeze offenses. There's a certain tight end coming out of high school. He wasn't 6'3", he was 6'4". and he was 257, so he had a little more meat on his bones, but he wound up being pretty good, and he plays for the Buffalo Bills.
Could you be talking about a Knox brother?
I am not foreshadowing Martavious Collins to be the next Dawson Knox. God knows he's not committed to Auburn. But what I'm saying is this frame makes sense. His athletic ability makes sense. He's the number 21 athlete in the 2024 class. I think that we talked before we got on the air, Dylan, that this kid could wind up being, if he works his tail off, can wind up being a 5-star when it's all said and done. But that's, there's a long road ahead of that, and stars only matter so much when the pieces come together in the right way.
We've talked about it a couple of times that a lot of these guys in Auburn's class right now could be 5-stars by the end of it. Just because we have 3 4-stars listed, I think Amon Lane and Jaden Lewis could both see themselves being those 5-star players if they have a good enough. I'm not sure what their composite score is right now. I can probably find that as I am talking about them. Maybe not. I'm trying.
And stars aren't everything, Dylan.
They're not everything.
But Daniel, I am curious to get your thoughts here on how big of an impact it is that Martavious Collins takes 2 visits to Auburn and decommits to Alabama. Decommits from Alabama, and then you see him pop up on Walker White, who we presume to be the quarterback of the future at Auburn, right? You see Walker White quote tweet his the announcement of his decommitment via On3, saying, "I love to see this at Coach Hugh Freeze." This is stuff we've not seen since a couple administrations ago.
It reminds me a lot of how I ended up on the plains. Visited Alabama, did not like it. Anyway, yeah, it's huge. And if Auburn ends up landing this one, that really goes a long way to showing that, yeah, like we're here to compete with the Alabamas and the Clemsons and the Ohio States and the Georgias. Like we're here, and we're going to get these high caliber players that, the top of the top want. And we're going to compete in these tough regions.
There's another buzzword. Daniel is so good at the buzzwords today. Okay, here's another buzzword: regional and locational. Right? Rome, Georgia. Georgia. You already heard my buzzword. You're going into, and obviously you've got to recruit Georgia if you're at Auburn. The state of Georgia is just so rich in high school talent. Florida the same way, and we've talked about it over and over again. The really strengthened numbers we've seen in the past couple of years, maybe not so much in the 23 and the 24s, but we definitely think the 25s are going to be really strong in Alabama. Not taking anything away from this 24 class because they can be very special, but very big deal to go get a very highly, if Hugh Freeze and company can pull it off to where they swing, Martavious Collins in the coming weeks, months, whatever. Big deal to go and say, hey, Kirby Smart, knocking on that metaphorical door. Hey, bud, we're here. We're taking your date out to dinner. See you later. Like, really, it's like that, right?
It's amazing. I love it. It's a huge, as one might say, as I've been saying a lot, just because you don't see this. You said a couple administrations ago, which administration are you talking about? Because, Gus would recruit pretty well, but I don't think he ever recruited positions of need like Hugh has emphasized thus far. Because, we talk about the offensive line all the time. I've been talking about the offensive line since our first commit, our first signee, really. Just the fact that Hugh Freeze has gone out there and gotten these dudes. Our secondary is set for at least 4 seasons worth. Just because we have so many dogs in the secondary. Now our quarterback room is probably not as veteran filled as we'd like it to be. But Hugh Freeze's work with that has shown in his career that he knows how to develop quarterbacks. And now you have a tight end that Auburn is potentially going to get from Rome, Georgia, who he's taking right under the nose of Kirby Smart. Hopefully,
we'll be polite. We'll be polite. Who he theoretically could be taking.
Yeah, you're right. Who he will be taking, and Hugh Freeze is just, man. You're slow to give him the hope, but I've been an Auburn fan for too long not to be just filled up with the hope that comes with a promising recruiting cycle, and it looks like we are promising recruiting cycles for years to come.
You're so right, and Freeze's open admittance, the class of 23, I think he did a great job. We talked about that time and time again, but he was been open in saying, and ever since really the Senior Bowl when we first really heard him kind of say it publicly, obviously he's happy with the 23 class. They worked their butts off. That entire staff did, and players within that class included. They worked together to get some guys to the Plains, but he's done a really good job. Hugh Freeze has of saying, look. 23s, this was great. This was a good starting point. The 24s and 25s are going to be where we are able to tell as a staff and where I'm able to tell as a coach how successful I'm going to be at Auburn. And he couldn't be more right. These next two recruiting classes are imperative. 24 is going to be a damn near complete recruiting cycle. 2025, that's going to be your make or break here. If he can have a great 2024 class, like we're already heading that direction, for instance, I know we're going to talk about it. I think we can just keynote Walker White. One of those guys that everybody in the country wanted, that everybody thought was a Clemson lock, has gone so far now into his commitment where he's not only recruiting other guys, he came out and publicly said, hey, look, I'm not looking anywhere else other than Auburn. I'm going to Auburn. I'm not going to visit anywhere not named Auburn. This is a huge step. And to be quite honest, guys, this is something we never saw out of the administration previous under the Harsin tenure. It's just not something where it ever felt like Brian Harsin was looking a few years down the road. And quite frankly, it never looked that way with Gus Malzahn. Malzahn may have pulled a guy here and there, that wanted to come to Auburn. And I'm not taking away the fact that Malzahn's staff did offer people years in advance, but a lot of these times it's kind of like a gimme. Auburn is one of those places that you can recruit on a base level with minimal effort. Freeze is combining that, I guess, premise and stature with to what we've seen so far and previously unmatched, I guess, tenacity. I think that's the word I'm going to go with.
And there was a tweet, I don't know if it's still up anywhere, but Landon King was asked what made him come back to Auburn after entering the transfer portal. And he posted a picture of Hugh Freeze. And if I can direct your attention to a Jeffrey Emba tweet he put out, I believe, so it'd be yesterday morning when this comes out. When you see everybody around you working hard, giving everything they got, and keep smiling and get ready for the next set, it's contagious. Hashtag new era.
Period, exclamation point.
He is in the series of, I think, a little bit over 2 months. Hugh Freeze has sat down and changed the outlook of this Auburn football team, the Auburn program, everything.
You're so correct. And the fan base, everything around it. And to think, guys, he really doesn't know his team yet in terms of he's been out on the recruiting trail, admittedly. He's contacted the guys that are considering other options and made sure that they understood, hey, you're my priority, but building this program is my priority too. And it's only going to benefit both of us if we can work together and keep you here. And he's done a phenomenal job. So to that point, and to his credit, because God knows I was critical the moment that Hugh Freeze was announced head coach at Auburn. I was one of those, this could be a Gus Malzahn 2.0 kind of thing. I'm already going to kind of go ahead and start backpedaling now. And if this whole thing doesn't pan out, then I'll be right back to saying that I never switched up. But as far as that's concerned, Dylan, you couldn't be more right. On that note, I'm Harrison Tarr of the Auburn Daily. You can find my Twitter handle at by Harrison Tarr. That's just like you're looking at a byline. All my written work is at the Auburn Daily, theauburndaily.com. And you can check me out on the Auburn Daily podcast on Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays with the fantastic, strikingly handsome Dylan Larck. And on Fridays with the fantastic, even more fantastic, maybe slightly more handsome Lindsey Crosby. You got to give him that. It's a good looking guy right there.
I would say that.
And you can check out all of our work on the College Loop that I know Dylan's going to plug here in a moment. Daniel, it's all you. It's been a pleasure to have you back in the studio, my man, or back in the Zoom.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to be here. My written work is literally everywhere. All sorts of places. At Daniel J. Locke on Twitter. I'm going to start covering this recruiting cycle better than I did last year because there's more motivation and a new day.
There you go.
And with that, I'm Dylan Larck at your boy the Tank on Twitter. That is at YABOY the Tank. Also catch me on the Auburn Daily Show. I just had a show come out yesterday on Monday with Lance Dahl where we talked about our top 3 newcomers to this Auburn football team. Go check that out. I'll catch you on the Auburn Daily on Wednesday, so that's tomorrow again with Harrison Tarr. We'll To be determined on what we're going to talk about then. But with that, follow College Loop everywhere except for MySpace. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, the works.
And big news, we're now available anywhere you get your podcast.
We're now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. We out there, we up in here. And with
we back up.
We back up. And with that, it's been the College Loop Podcast.